Hi, everyone, and welcome to another incredible edition of Ask NP Deidre with nurse practitioner Deidre from Integrative Health and Wellness out of Ohio. But she has great telehealth abilities across the United States. So, worth inquiring about at our website at aspirewih.com. This week, we're talking about the foods that you can eat that will either help your menopause symptoms, or they can exacerbate your menopause symptoms. And this is really important because, with women, cardiovascular disease is a huge, huge issue, number one killer, and menopause can actually lead to cardiovascular disease as well. And we've talked about that on different shows. And so we're not going to get into that today. You can look up at youtube.com/Ask NP Deidre, the @ Ask NP Deidre, or youtube.com/@ the way to my heart. And we have lots of great content in there. Everything that NP Deidre has ever talked about right there on those two YouTube channels. And you could spend hours and hours and hours filling yourself with great knowledge straight from the mouth of NP Deidre. Today, menopause and all the foods. What should you eat and what shouldn't you eat? NP Deidre, first, should we talk about some of the most common symptoms, and then we'll get into some specific questions about, the different types of foods and such?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll start with hot flashes.
Most common symptoms are the vasomotor
Yep.
symptoms, such as hot flashes or
Yep.
night sweats.
Yeah.
Want to say though, some people get chills at night, and that's considered a
Mm.
night sweat. So it's not always that they're getting hot at night; they're getting those chills at night. But those are the ones that we hear the most. But there's so many other things that play into menopause symptom wise, such as brain fog, or feeling like your concentration's off, or having vaginal dryness or painful intercourse, or just loss of interest in sex. And so those are symptoms of menopause. If your period is off and you're skipping your menstrual cycle, that's kind of perimenopause symptoms. And the list is kind of exhausting.
Yes. So I want to start with spicy foods and hot flashes, and maybe some other foods that maybe be less obvious that might be causing hot flashes to get worse.
Yeah, you've probably heard that spicy foods can make a hot flash worse, and that can be true for some women because they temporarily raise the body's temperature and stimulate kind of blood vessels to dilate. But there's kind of a twist. There's other hidden triggers that's going on that can be sneaky, like caffeine, alcohol, high carb meals, because those spike insulin, the high carb meals, and that can affect hot flash frequency. So if you're
Yep.
spiking insulin, that could be what's happening. And some women might also notice that they're having hot flashes after they eat an aged cheese or processed meats. So because they have tyramine in them, and that can dilate the blood vessels, just like a spicy food could. So if you're trying to track your triggers, kind of put a food diary together. But you might find that your personal culprit could be your favorite pizza night thing, not just the jalapeno.
Okay, got a weird one for you. Is there any truth to the claim that soy products can actually help menopausal symptoms because the phytoestrogen in it, or is that a myth?
So soy contains the phytoestrogens, and those are compounds that act very weak on those estrogen receptors in the body. And so in some countries where women traditionally eat soy, like Japan, hot flashes are actually reported less often. But in the clinical studies, it shows that soy proteins and isoflavonoids can reduce hot flashes in some women. So there's some mixed results there, but the biggest benefit kind of tends to happen in the first few years of menopause when people need some natural metabolizing going on with that. So think of eating, edamame, tofu, tempeh during that time, not the heavily processed soy protein bars. So natural, high quality is really important.
Okay. And we have a question coming in from someone who's asking about heart palpitations. They seem to get worse after my morning coffee. Are there specific beverages I should eliminate or reduce during menopause, such as coffee?
Even though we enjoy coffee so much, right? It's a stimulant, so it can make palpitations more noticeable, especially when estrogen levels drop. I hear on a daily from women that they have heart palpitations that start like as they start to go through perimenopause and menopause when estrogen drops. But caffeine also disrupts your sleep, and that will make hot flashes worse as well. So and another sneaky thing, not just with coffee, but those energy drinks or those pre-workout powders or teas that are very stimulating. And for some people, sadly, even dark chocolate.
Do you see my sad face?
Yeah, yeah,
You
I know.
always say dark chocolate is so great for you.
I
This
know. That's
time,
why I said
this
sadly.
is the
It could.
we have our YouTube producer. Well, you're a guy to our YouTube producer, Josh. He says, say it in so. All in moderation. If it doesn't affect you, you can, and your doctor says it's okay
Yeah, and you
to
can
check with your
always
doctor.
try a gradual reduction in your caffeine to see if that helps with the palpitations as the estrogen levels are dropping. But that's what it is. It's that combo of caffeine with lower
Yeah.
estrogen.
So you mentioned alcohol consumption and its impact on menopause symptoms. Can you go a little deeper into that? What is your perspective overall on alcohol consumption during menopause? Because one patient is saying that she noticed even one glass of wine seemed to trigger her night sweats.
Yeah, it can make you feel like a furnace switch during menopause because it dilates those blood vessels and it raises the heart rate, and that kind of disrupts your body's nighttime temperature regulation. So some of the studies really on alcohol show that it interrupts deep sleep. So even if you fall asleep fast, you're probably more likely to wake up drenched in sweat. So if you notice this pattern, it might be worth doing a 2-week alcohol-free experiment to see how your nighttime goes. And we always say that that Merlot makes you flush, right? You'll be the color of it.
Yeah, that's true. We don't want that to happen. So, definitely it's always worth, I mean, doing the elimination diet is always a really good idea if you are, symptomatic and then just slowly adding things in, right? Just to see, okay, then if something is your trigger or not, but starting with the very basics and working with someone like you who is a functional medicine practitioner, nurse practitioner, and you do a great focus on women's issues, finding someone like you to have meetings with and even scheduling a telehealth visit with you through aspirewih.com and being able to work with you to establish a baseline and say, okay, let's start here, do this for a couple weeks, and we'll start adding in to see how it impacts you, right?
Right. And we talk about diet when it comes to perimenopause and menopause because there's a lot of things that play into that. Not only like we've talked about a few foods here and alcohol and
Yeah.
caffeine that can cause symptoms, but really digging into your diet during this time. And sadly, we have to make these tweaks.
Yeah,
So,
we do. That's no fun.
yeah.
Um, but we can find some new fun, right? There's so many different foods out there. You can find some new fun. Things you may not have thought of before, but definitely not processed foods. You mentioned earlier about processed foods, and we do have a question to about that. So if you can go a little bit deeper into the processed foods, because she was told to avoid processed foods, as you suggested early on. But what specifically makes them problematic for menopausal women versus others? You mentioned that one that starts with the T. Is that a preservative that are in these processed foods? What is it?
Well, there's a lot of high refined carbs, sodium, and additives that spike the blood sugar and promote inflammation. So anytime we spike the blood sugar, we can induce more hot flashes and menopausal symptoms. And that connection with menopause is that lower estrogen means that your body is less efficient in controlling that blood sugar. So the spikes happen after we're eating foods that we often crave because, when you're stressed, what do we crave when we're stressed? We want salt, sugar, carbs, things like that, and those cravings can lead to more symptoms of fatigue and the worsening hot flashes. So high sodium foods, they can also cause bloating and raise the blood pressure, and that's going to be an additional risk there post menopause. So avoiding processed foods, and we talk about that a lot just across the board. The less processed you eat, the better. So
Yep. Shopping the perimeter of the supermarket, just staying away from those Girl Scout cookies out front. That's not what we mean perimeter. Whole Foods, the vegetable and the fruit aisle, definitely the best foods for you to target when you go to the store. And you were mentioning some of those processed foods and the sugar in the sodium, but also the sugar. And this next question comes in asking about sugar consumption specifically and how it affects menopausal symptoms and our natural sweeteners any better. I mean, I would imagine sugar is a natural sweetener, but maybe she was referencing also the artificial sweeteners as well.
So, like I said, spikes your blood sugar and triggers insulin and cortisol surges, right? And both of those can worsen your hot flash. It actually has an impact on your mood, weight gain during menopause. So, the higher
Mm.
sugar intake also increases your risk of cardiovascular disease, which that often climbs after menopause. When we start to lose estrogen, our risk for heart disease increases. Those natural sweeteners, though, like honey, maple syrup, there's still a sugar, but monk fruit or stevia, those don't raise the blood sugar and can be better options. So you're looking for something that's not actually going to raise the blood sugar. And if you question it, like you can get on a continuous glucose monitor and just check out what your blood sugars are doing during menopause. I often encourage women to do that because you will find that things that you used to be able to do, you might not be able to tolerate as well. That will change all these glucose shifts.
And you mentioned weight, and a patient is writing in saying that she noticed her weight distribution has changed dramatically during menopause, despite eating the exact same diet as she always has. And she says she eats pretty healthy. Are there specific foods that can help with the middle? She
Yeah,
doubled the middle.
yeah, that that actually is a very
Emphasis on
common
middle.
thing. I had a woman today who come in menopause and had been working out 3 times a week pretty aggressively, doing all the right things in what she ate, and still was gaining that 20 pounds in the middle. And part of that is estrogen actually helps keep your fat stored in the hips and thighs. And so when it drops, that fat storage shifts to the abdomen. So it's not just cosmetic belly fat, it's actually more inflammatory and tied to heart disease. So the foods that can help all day long, fiber, fiber, fiber. So your vegetables, your lean proteins, your omega-3s, your fish, your green tea. Get plenty of those cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts that help support estrogen metabolism. So cruciferous is really good for estrogen metabolism. So those foods, particularly during this time, is important. And adding flax. So I like to encourage women to add flax, about 10 grams, which is a tablespoon and a half of that, because it's high in fiber and it can really help with the shifts in the weight and everything. So increasing your fiber, cruciferous, things like that.
So funny. I had no idea I was allergic to flaxseed. And because I would grind it up, I actually bought a spice grinder, and I would grind up my flax. You can get ground flax out there, but I just was grinding it myself, less processed, in my opinion, elsewhere, and I do it fresh. And I was adding it to my smoothies, and now I'm not supposed to have it anymore. And I was really bummed because it was a real staple in my diet. Added it to every single smoothie, along with I would grind my chia seeds fresh as well when I would do my smoothies. And so now just leaned on my chia seeds, but I love that you say flax, and I really wish I could do it because it's such a great addition to any diet.
It really is. It's very helpful for hormones. So
So, with heart disease risk increasing after menopause, I mentioned that in the beginning, although I didn't do a very good job creating that tie too. Which heart healthy foods become even more important for women to incorporate daily into their diet? You mentioned fiber. Fiber is really, really good.
so your fatty fish, your salmon, your sardines, those leafy greens, so spinach, arugula is a good green to put in because it's a bitter, so it can help with like breaking down foods. And but your berries, rich in antioxidants, are really important. Nuts and seeds, olive oil. We know you have a favorite olive oil out there by you, which is so good and good for you. Beans, lentils, things like that can be really good heart healthy foods for postmenopause, during menopause, and you really aim for that Mediterranean style plate plus polyphenols, meaning add in those rich berries and pomegranates and things like that so you get the high antioxidant foods. But Mediterranean is the most studied diet out there for reducing heart risk in postmenopausal women.
Okay, we've talked about all kinds of different foods and things like that. Could you actually recommend now, or give us an example of a typical day of eating that might help to stabilize hormones and reduce symptoms for someone with perimenopause or menopause?
Absolutely. The first thing is when you break your fast for breakfast, you really want high protein in there. Breaking with protein and some phytoestrogens and fibers. So think like Greek yogurt with berries, flax seeds, sprinkle on some cinnamon because that's really good for insulin and glucose. If you were, lunchtime, a big leafy green salad with some salmon, some chickpeas, avocado, olive oil, lemon dressing. Snacking with some nuts and a piece of fruit is really good. And then at dinner time, really kind of looking at getting high quality protein and a good source of protein, grilled chicken, um, turkey, tofu, adding some Brussels sprouts so that you get the cruciferous, some quinoa, some sauteed greens, and lots of water, herbal teas, green teas. But that'll give you a steady blood sugar and the healthy fats for your hormone production and the fats to kind of fight off the inflammation.
Fantastic. That sounds good. And I'm drinking my anti-inflammatory tea. It might have, thank goodness that with the chroma key here, it's chromaing off, but everyone knows what label that is on there. But I'll block it. There we go. But there's anti-inflammatory tea. So I take a pineapple and I cleanse the outside of it, scrub it with baking soda and a vegetable wash. And I take the outside of the pineapple, and then I take the core of the pineapple, I put it in hot water, pour in some. Trader Joe's has this great little packages of ginger powder. You could use fresh ginger and cut that up, some turmeric, cut that up, even leave the skin on, squeeze in an orange, squeeze in a lemon and even a lime in there, and just boil it and let it sit for a few hours to cool. And then you have a great anti-inflammatory tea, which is amazing. And you just strain it. When you pour it into the bottles, I pour it into containers, glass containers, and I stick them in the fridge for later consumption. But you can actually you strain all that out of it. So it becomes quick to make, and it's really healthy. And it helps me to consume more water each day.
I think that's an excellent idea. And I love turmeric and ginger for what they can do for the body. So that sounds delicious.
And our final question that we have, and then I'll ask you for final thoughts, but we have another patient who's writing in and said that She's read some conflicting information about seed cycling for hormone balance. Is there any scientific evidence behind this practice and would you recommend it? I'd never heard of it. Seed
Oh,
cycle.
yeah, it's widely talked about, but if we're looking at like, is there any large random controlled trials about seed cycling? There isn't. Basically, seed cycling is the idea of eating certain seeds during different times of your menstrual cycle to kind of help balance hormones, while they say flax and pumpkin in the first half, sunflowers and sesame in the second. But the truth is, there's not really solid scientific evidence providing that. But I mean, these are high phytoestrogens and they're really good for you and they're nutrient dense. And so while they may not balance hormones directly, that's still a healthy habit that you should do. So eating the seeds and doing that can be really beneficial, but the evidence right now is not there to support it for certain times in the cycle.
Well, thank you, Nurse Practitioner Deidre. Is there anything else that you want to add? Those were quite a few questions that we got in from some folks in our Global PAD Association network, and they were pretty good questions. I was really impressed.
No, I think those are great questions, and just having the conversation of like, what should I be doing? What can I be doing? How can I go through perimenopause and menopause and still feel well and not feel like we're derailed from our life? And so thinking about the way we eat changes when we're in menopause.
And it's really important for those people that are watching this podcast right now. We interviewed last week about an important FDA expert panel and a black label warning on estrogen products. Would you mind just giving us a quick synopsis here? And I encourage people to go to youtube.com/the @ Ask NP Deidre or youtube.com/the @ the weight of my heart. And that full video interview with you on this really important topic is there. But give us the Cliff Notes version.
Cliff notes are, there's a big discussion out there where we are talking about removing the label that the FDA now has on estrogen products, saying that it causes, like, it's a black box warning, which is the highest stringent warning that you can have on any medication. So removing that with all these risks, because the evidence is there that shows that those risks are very minimal, and we're not able to use estrogen like we want to because people are afraid of that. They're afraid of cancers, they're afraid of heart disease, clotting, and everything, but the studies are showing elsewhere. So removal of that will give access to therapies needed for women.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nurse Practitioner Deidre. And for more, if you want to hear more from Nurse Practitioner Deidre, make sure you do go to our website, Aspire, ASPIREWIH.org, Aspire Wellness Integrative Health. Make sure you go to her website, and she does have telehealth services. I said .org, .com, Aspire, WIH.com. I'm so used to saying padhelp.org because we're a foundation. But you are a.com, so you can find some great information there about the services that Nurse Practitioner Deidre does provide. If you're in Ohio, you can go to her office, but also if you aren't, she does have the ability to do telehealth services, limited in some states, but across the US. So make sure to check that out. You can also follow her at youtube.com/the @ Ask NP Deidre on the YouTube channel, and also our YouTube channel, youtube.com/. Boy, I'm getting everything wrong today. Thank goodness for my YouTube producer, Josh. And no one's, Deidre, you can always correct me. I am going to, maybe he can go back and literally bleep me out on the ask. So it's called Ask NP Deidre, but her YouTube channel is youtube.com/the @ NP Deidre. I even helped you create that, and I can't even remember that. It's just the @ NP Deidre. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel, and like this video and subscribe to our channel as well to get notified on great content like this and to get your questions in to NP Deidre, youtube.com/the @ the way to my heart as well. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you again, Nurse Practitioner Deidre. We really appreciate you.